Barry, so if you hire a personal injury attorney after an accident, does that necessarily mean you have to go to court?
Well, the phrase going to court really has two different meanings that people use. On one level, it means, am I going to have to file a lawsuit? Which isn't the same as ending up in court in the sense of sitting in a courtroom in front of a judge and a jury waiting to have a case resolved. Not every case, has to end up in court under either set of circumstances. I mean, some cases are certainly amenable to being settled short of a lawsuit being filed. Many are amenable to being settled somewhere short of going to trial. Depending on which set of statistics you use, very few cases end up going to court in the sense of in front of a judge and jury. Depending on the set of statistics that you look at, it may be 5%, which really seems high to me. I think the number realistically is, out of the cases that actually get filed, probably 2 or 3% actually end up in front of a judge or jury. The rest get either dismissed somewhere along the way or some type of settlement is reached at some point during the process.
Okay.
Virtually everyone would prefer to see their case settled somewhere short of going to trial. But there are some cases where filing the case is certainly appropriate and really necessary if you're going to get fair and reasonable settlement value on the case.
So what kinds of cases are appropriate for filing a lawsuit?
Well, there are a handful of cases where it's really appropriate. First off, at a global level, any case where you're not going to be offered fair settlement value for your case is one where filing a lawsuit is appropriate to work the case up and eventually reach a point where an appropriate amount is being offered to settle the case. On top of that, there are some cases where the chances of settling the case are really slim, so that there's not a whole lot of point in delaying filing the lawsuit. You might as well get the case filed and get it working its way through the system so you can reach a point of resolution that much faster. For example, medical malpractice cases are almost never settled without a lawsuit being filed. There are some low-quality insurance companies for car crashes that are never ever going to settle a case. You might as well get the case into file and in the court system at the earliest possible opportunity. Any case where there's really significant serious injuries, those are very, very seldom settled without a lawsuit being filed for an appropriate amount of money. There are some cases where having the subpoena power and the power of the courts to do some additional investigation is appropriate. For example, if you have a case where you're trying to determine who else may be liable in addition to the one party who is responsible, in that case you may want to file a lawsuit so that you have the power to issue subpoenas and do that extra bit of investigation, make sure that all of the appropriate parties are brought into the case and that they're held responsible for what happened. So there are some cases where it certainly is appropriate to file a lawsuit. Whether those cases eventually go on to be one of those 2 or 3 or 5% of cases that end up going to verdict in front of a judge and jury, you never know.
So if you do file a lawsuit, what are the opportunities for the case to get settled?
Just because a lawsuit is filed doesn't mean that eventually you will end up sitting in front of a judge and jury one day. And there are, throughout the life of a case, various windows where settlement is more likely than others. The first of these windows tends to happen right after the lawsuit has been filed. A lot of insurance companies will have less senior, less experienced adjusters handling cases in the pre-suit stages. And then once a lawsuit is filed, it gets handed over to a more senior adjuster who may have a different opinion than the original adjuster on the file. So that's a window where settlement is relatively likely to occur. After that, really the next likely window for a case to get settled is after the plaintiff, my client, the injured person, is presented for deposition. Deposition is a question and answer session with the other lawyer. It's done in person, typically in a conference room. And after it's over, the defense lawyer will write a report to the insurance company. And the first paragraph of this is always a description of their impression of the witness. And one of the things I work very hard on, and one of my goals when I'm preparing a client for the deposition, is to make sure that they're ready and that they present in a way that when the defense lawyer writes that report to the insurance company, he's going to begin it with something along the lines of, this is a nice lady who a jury is going to like and is going to want to help. And when I have a client make that kind of impression, then it helps the process of getting to a point where they're going to make a fair settlement offer on the case. So, that's the second real window for settlement that occurs after my client's given a deposition. After that, the next likely window is going to be right before doctors give their depositions. The issue of the nature and extent of the injury, the causal connection between the injuries that are being claimed and the accident are always central issues in every case. To get at that, we need to do depositions of doctors. Doctors get to charge by the hour for their time during the deposition. Internists, typically will charge $200, $300, $400 an hour, but when you get to spine surgeons and brain surgeons and doctors who do joint replacements, it may be $1,000, $1,500 an hour. Once those depositions are done of the doctors, if the issue of the nature and extent of the injury or the causal connection between the accident and the injury is resolved by the doctor's deposition, then everyone has a good sense of exactly what the issues are in the case in terms of the liability and the medical end, and people can really kind of size things up with a lot less wonder or worry about some of the issues in the case. So that becomes another window where the settlement is likely. Finally, the last likely window for settling a case is right as the case is about to go to trial. At this point, people are looking at the case very seriously. Everyone's made a big investment in terms of time and expenses in the case, and this is where the cliche settling on the courthouse steps comes from. It's a cliche, it happens a lot.
This is Fighting for What's Right with attorney Barry Doyle. Feel free to subscribe to our channel, leave comments, and click like if you like what you've seen and heard.